So I used to go out to restaurants all the time, and I'd go out and have a beer and a drink every now and then and had no problems. And I put a stop to it months ago because inflation is on the rise and no one can afford to make a living on minimum wage, let alone $20 at 84 hours a week in some areas. It's not a livable wage. So going out to restaurants and bars and all those things we used to do is not an affordable activity. And that's why I stopped going. And another reason is because the items are discontinued. Like all the stuff that I used to like when going out to a restaurant, which is the reason I went there, discontinued and replaced with something shitty. Or they just have only the shitty and the less favorite items, and then it just makes you want to stop going. And another reason is that the quality of the food has gone down, and the decoration and designs and all these things, they've all plummeted, but their prices went up. Like, I remember when I went to one restaurant, like, shortly after the virus was starting to lift between 2020 and 2021, I remember my food used to look so amazing with colorful garnishes and all these decorations and real food added to it. But then you just see food that's, like, all splattered and clustered, and it literally looks like a child made it. And it's really sad. And another one is the short staff. Like, you come in there and half the restaurant is fucking empty, and the server's like, how may I help you? And they'll be like, oh, that'll be a 15 to 30 minute wait, and like half the tables are empty and there's two servers playing around on their phones. And restaurants were starting to change. Like, it felt like a bit of discrimination after that. You come in, they're like, oh, it's gonna be a long wait, even though half the restaurant's empty and there's two servers sitting around on their phone. And then on days when it is busy, so many coworkers have left after the pandemic, which means all these servers are working twice as hard and they're miserable and they're all stressed out. And it just seems like the environment isn't fun and relaxing. It just seems more overwhelming to where even customers like me can see it. And another one is the food looked like a child made it. Like I talked about earlier, we went to Red Robin a few months ago, and we had the Burning Love Burger that I've been having for years. And I remember the burgers at Red Robin were extraordinary with all kinds of garnishes, big patties, a beer and a cocktail for all less than $15 back then. And then we went there a couple months ago, and it literally looked like a child made it. Like, the patty looked so processed and thin, the buns were so ordinary and bland and boring. There was no lettuce and garnishes and all the pico de gallo that used to have. It was the saddest fucking burger I've ever seen. Like, it literally looked like your kids made you a meal on Father's Day. And when I sent it to a cousin, she was like, don't insult my children like that. They can make a better meal than that. And it was true. Like, it was so sad. Like, it was the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. And that's how it is at all these restaurants now after the pandemic. Like, I go there, and I remember it used to be so goddamn cool, and the food was so extraordinary, and the prices were so convenient. It felt like I was eating quality food. But then I come in there, like, after like the pandemic, and the food just has no color. It's bland, it's boring. It looked like your kids made you a meal on Father's Day. Like, it was the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. And when I started cooking at home, making my own stuff, like, my food looked better and it was higher quality, and it seemed like I was eating real food compared to all these shitty places. And I only pay like $10 to have groceries for at least 2 or 3 days, at least for the ingredients and stuff. And it's just really, really sad. And every time I go out, like, it's not affordable, the wait times are longer, and for some reason when I go to restaurants lately and I'm by myself, people will turn around and they're staring, and it's a really discriminative kind of feeling of an area. Like, it just doesn't feel welcoming. People look at you weird, the people are uptight, nobody's there, the prices are high, the menus changed, the items have changed, a lot of the good stuff I used to like is gone. And judging from what I'm seeing, it seems like a lot of people have stopped going too, and it's probably the same reasons as mine. I remember we went to Steak and Shake 10 years ago, long before their financial failures. I remember I was ignored when waiting to be seated. Like, the servers were just all walk around ignoring me. But a family of 3 or 4 come in, they're like, hi, how are you? And then the family of 4 was like, he was here first. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And I should have just walked out. And I remember my shake took forever. My meal's about halfway done, including my fries, before my shake gets there. And then I remember when me and my buddies were going to see Transformers when it came out in 2014. My shake never arrived, and they charged me for it. And before I had a chance to say anything, one of my buddies literally came up yelling at the manager saying he didn't get his shake in such an aggressive tone. And the manager went in the back, and I can hear her screaming, "This kid didn't get his shake, and this is like the 30th time this has happened all goddamn day." And it was just screaming that we can hear like 30 feet away. And overall, restaurants are just a failing and a dying industry. They're not making money like they used to. I'm an ex-bartender. I bartended in Miami Beach in 2021, and it was so understaffed that it was literally like bringing soldiers to war. Even though they don't know what to do, they give them a gun, they go out and shoot because they don't have anybody. That's how it was at the bar. Like, no orientation, no introduction. Boop, here you go, make a mojito. Oh, we forgot to tell you how we run things back here. You don't have a POS system. Oh, we can't teach you the POS system right now. We're too understaffed. Don't have the time to help you. But on the slowest times of the day, when I have all the time to teach you and can be training you, we're just going to send you home early. We're not going to tell you when we're sending you home early because it's just so understaffed and getting so slammed. And overall, it was really hard to keep up. And it was probably because everybody there was on cocaine, for one. And two, it was so understaffed. And they let me go in 3 weeks. And I couldn't figure it out. I was like, what happened? Is something wrong with me? Like, am I mentally stupid? Like, I went and cried to a bartender I've known for 10 years about it. And he would go on to say, they didn't set you up to win, that you need to find a better place. And so I try and I try, but everywhere I go, it's the same thing. And so I went to bartending school, aced it, and everywhere I go, I'm not able to get my foot in the door. And that's just because bars and restaurants are a dying industry. Like, they're not making money like they used to. I remember the bar downtown I've been going at for 10 years. I remember in 2015, it used to have so many people. Like, the moment you enter, there's people at the bar having beer and cocktails, and everybody gathering around, circling around, to where you literally, like, had to, like, squeeze your way through. And people are pushing around. They don't know you're there. And I remember there were 3 bartenders running around, the chicken's head cut off. Me having to wait for a cocktail after like 5 or 10 people. And it was literally so fast-paced. They had to make you the drink, charge you, and then done. They had to literally like get everybody they could. There was customer after customer. It was literally like that scene from Cocktail where they have all these people and everybody's bartending. It was literally like that back then. But today, it's about a quarter of what it used to be. Like, at the bar on a Saturday night, there'd be like 2 people after 10 p.m. on a Saturday night. 1 bartender, and this was before COVID even happened. Like, this was back in 2019 when we had barely any people, and there was 1 bartender who was by himself after 10 p.m. Like, bars have been a dying industry before the pandemic. Same with restaurants, and that's just because they're not affordable. It's not a fun place to go to anymore. Like, it's bland, it's boring, the food sucks, the prices are too high, the portions are too little or too big. It just doesn't feel like a restaurant anymore. It's a joke.